Okay, so we're not live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Listening later, obviously, today on a strange episode of Fantasy Talks Not Live. It is my pleasure to be talking to Steve. Steve, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Fine, fine, fine. So I was wondering how to introduce you because in the past you were Steve from the Steve Talks Books channel, YouTube.
Mhm.
But now what are you? You've got like this sort of digital media empire that you're building slowly.
I wouldn't go that far. No, I wouldn't go that far. But before we get into that, I just want to thank you. This is the first time I've been invited on another podcast, so thanks for the invite. But no, I don't know if I call it an empire. It's just a group of friends.
Right, right. Now, right, hang on. Let's unpick this. So you've got going. Well, it all started with the YouTube channel, which is
Mhm.
still there, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's still
You
there.
you've got the pagechewing.com forums and how many podcasts?
We are on 3 with maybe another one coming, but we'll see.
Exactly, exactly. So, how did all this come about? What was the initial sort of pebble that induced the landslide?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Well, I think originally I started the YouTube channel with a goal of creating a community, like a group of friends and a community. And that's really what I wanted to do, is promote the forums and the website and get like a group of friends going. I did that for a long time. And I think with YouTube, and it's something we've talked about before, is when it's a visual medium, I think it's more performative. And I just got a little burned out from videos and editing, and it just was a lot. And I just felt like podcast was more my speed. And I think part of it is because you don't see all the back end YouTube stuff when you do a podcast, is you just kind of throw it out there and whatever happens, happens. And the analytics and everything, it kind of can get to you sometimes. And I just felt like I needed a change. And thankfully, along the way of doing YouTube, I made lots of wonderful friends, and I decided to kind of scale down, which isn't really scaling down when you keep adding stuff on top of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just kind of grew from there, and just different interests. And like I said, just if not for the friends I've made along the way, I wouldn't be bothering anymore, because it's creating content can be a lonely experience, because you create it, if you're not getting a lot of engagement, it's weird. You're just kind of talking to the void. So having like-minded people around really makes it worthwhile. And really, like, it becomes one of the things that, because I have a really stressful job, and knowing that I have a group of friends there that we can chat about nonsense is fun, to have that outlet to not only create things, but to have that sense of community, and people that you can talk with that you can't necessarily talk about with other, topics that you can't talk about with most people. You can't really talk about literature with just anyone. Not everyone's into it, which is fine. I mean, people are into different things. So it's not too often that you'll find someone who can rant about Wheel of Time for an hour and a half or whatever, So it's cool to have that. It's neat to have that outlet, and to have friends all over the world that you can talk to about that sort of thing.
No, I totally agree with you because that's kind of maybe why I started my YouTube channel. Particularly I live in Spain. Who am I going to talk to of all these fantasy books that I read in English? And then somehow I ended up bumping into, because what came first, the channel or the page chewing forums?
Oh, well, the forums have been around in one way or another since 2004.
Right, so before YouTube then.
Yeah, so and they've taken on a few different versions, different things. So the spirit has been around for 20 years, but the page chewing forum has been we had a forum, the current iteration, since about 2015. So it's been
Right.
about 9 years, and it's undergone changes and modifications. But yeah, it's been about 8 or 9 years. But I was really trying to build on that community with YouTube.
Okay. I mean, I think there's so many things I want to talk to you about, and I don't know which direction to take it. So let's start with something positive. The pagechewing.com forums, for anyone that doesn't know what they are, I really recommend just going checking it out. And which what you said, there's that community, literally people from all over the world, and we could start naming all the people that we know. Livia is in Australia, Paramita is in India, Susana Portuguese but lives in Ireland. There's me in Spain. There's people from literally all over the world,
Yeah.
And everyone is, I think, 99% of the time or more, polite, respectful. We can disagree, but there's always good banter and there's good engagement and conversation. Serendipity or some sort of clever design?
I think it's just dumb luck. It just, sometimes the planets align and things work out, and it doesn't happen too often. That's why I really cherish what we've made over there. And yeah, it's been, I think it's just luck. Honestly, I think just certain people click on a certain link and just decide, what is this? And I'll try it out. And then they stick around. So it's one of those things where you want a bigger, I think most people think community, they think like thousands of people like on Discord, and my Discord has 3,000 people. But really it's probably 15 to 20 people who are there every day, who talk to each other and have inside jokes, and the rest of them are just kind of there. Like you don't really feel part of the group. Like you kind of feel like a third wheel a lot of the time. So in a way, it's nice having that small group of people who are like-minded, and no one who's kind of wanting to shake things up, or to have similar like-minded individuals who come together and kind of are looking for the same thing, which is really hard to find now. I mean, with social media and all these other outlets to talk to people and engage, and you can get on other platforms you get that instant gratification of, I have 10 likes, or I have a thumbs up, or whatever. So it's a whole different experience than social media, which we can go on forever about that. But yeah, social media it's a whole different experience. It's not an instant thing. It's, you make a post and then you wait for someone to read it and reply. It's not an instant thing. And really, I'm not good with one-liners or quips or quick that's not my thing. So it's nice having people who are willing to read a paragraph or two, which seems like a lot nowadays, but it's really not that much.
No, I totally agree with you. I think there's a sweet spot. Like, as soon as you got too many viewers or whatever, it's like you post and ghost, or you drop your video and you cannot keep up with the engagement. Whereas I think a pagechewing, you could, like, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's 20 people that are active, and it's relatively easy to keep track of conversations. I think if maybe there were thousands of people there, it'd just be, I don't know, unmanageable. So I think something that I've been feeling lately, and I think you've mentioned in the past as well, is that feeling of, send it all to hell, burn it all, shut it down, whatever. But because I'll tell you why sometimes I get that feeling. When I interview someone, or I have a great conversation for the podcast on the channel, whatever, and I see the numbers that it pulls, it's frustrating, because to my mind, like, I had a really good time. Not because anything clever I said, but because the guest that I had, I found really fascinating and engaging and entertaining. And it's like, I want people to listen to what this other person is saying. And I don't know how to get it more out there. And I don't know if it's just a very niche community. There's very few people that are interested in these things, or just there's no way to beat the algorithm. Did you experience something similar?
All the time. All the time. It's funny because you talk to people who you're excited to talk to, or even someone you may not know a whole lot about, and you have this really great conversation. They say lots of really great things that, like, wow, I never thought of it that way, or that's really cool. I never, you think, oh, this person has so many great insights and so many, it's just a great conversation. Then you wonder, is it just because I was there, or was it really great? Like, if someone listening, will they think it's interesting too, if they're not engaged in the conversation? But I think a lot of it is certain people. I think, especially on YouTube, with the algorithms and the way that people find what they're looking for, if it's someone who not a lot of people know about, which, let's just be honest, a lot of the people who are willing to talk to us are people who not a lot of people know about. And that's not a dig at them. It's just, it's hard to get that attention and to get that traction on both sides. So, it's a mutual thing where we help them and they help us, and we want to lift each other up. But yeah, I think of that all the time, because there's really great episodes I've done that it's like, wow, this is really great. People are going to love this. And then nobody listens. It's like, what's
Yeah.
wrong with you people? But yeah, it can be frustrating because it's like, well, how do I reach that audience? Like, how do I get people who would enjoy this? How do I get in their ear holes? Like, how do I get there? And it's tough because there's everyone's yelling into the void. So how do you stand out? How do you get people to come and say, I'm going to check out this interview with an author I've never heard about for an hour and a half? So
Mm.
it's tough, especially on YouTube, because if someone's looking for interviews, is that the first place they go? And if they are there, then who are they looking to hear, and what are they willing to spend time on? I think a lot of YouTube is going now to more of the short form content, like the TikTok kind of thing.
Mm.
So I think it's getting harder unless you really stick with it and really have guests that have names that can pull people in. It's tough to get that traction and to get people to keep coming back all the time.
But even so, like, you've talked to some very big names in fantasy. I've had a couple of big names in my channel, and just to give an example, when I interviewed Christopher Rocchio,
Mm.
Sang Eater series, it's hitting big. Comes to my channel, fantastic, like almost 2 hour conversation there, and it pulls a few hundred views. And I see he appears on other channels, and they're pulling thousands of views. And then I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong in my settings. Maybe, again, I'm trying to beat the algorithm because I've got the same name, I've got the same guest, and not to pick myself up, but maybe you get this as well. You know that an interview has gone well when you press the switch off live button and the conversation carries on for another half an hour
Yeah.
after you finish, right? And you go,
Yeah.
okay, this went well. So I don't know, did you get that as well? Because you've interviewed, Johnny Words, Steven
Mm.
Erickson, some big names, right?
Yeah, it's tough because so then it comes down to not only the content and the conversation, it also comes down to the thumbnail and the title and the description and the hashtags and all these other considerations of, how do you, if you're a smaller channel, when you think about like Mike's book reviews or which, and Mike's great, but other, like, the bigger channels, the
Mm-mm.
well-known channels, people watch no matter what because they have that audience that they've developed and they've fostered. But how do you get those same people to come and watch yours and listen to yours when you have a really great conversation with the same guest? So it's really tough to get to that point of, to get people coming back and to take a chance on it. So yeah, it's really strange because it doesn't always pop up on people's recommended, even if they're watching the same content and they search for the same books that Christopher's written. Maybe it doesn't get recommended to them, or maybe they don't click on it because the thumbnail didn't catch their eye, or there's too much text on the thumbnail. There's not enough text on the thumbnail, or the book title isn't in the thumbnail or in the title. And there's so many different things, or maybe they didn't promote it on the author side. That happens a lot. Sometimes they mention it on their socials or they send it out in their newsletter and then people come and watch it. And they don't always do that. And maybe sometimes that's just they forget, and sometimes they just don't care. So it's tough because the people who do kind of see it as a mutual benefit, they'll kind of talk about it and they'll spread word about it because they want people to come to your channel and watch it. So it's all these different considerations on how to get traction. And then also sometimes, it's something with YouTube that I kind of got to the point where sometimes people just won't like you because of the way you look, or because of the way that your background, or your thumbnails, or sometimes people will just hate you for whatever reason. And there's nothing you can, and you haven't, there's nothing you can do about it. Just people's opinions. They just have that opinion of you. I just don't like his face. I'm not going to watch that. And that stuff happens. I mean, there's so many different variables in you getting your content promoted, especially on YouTube. But if you can catch it, then it works. Then it can really help you if you work the algorithm and take the time to learn about it. So it's one of those things where it's work. And then what works in the algorithm today won't work 2 months from now.
Yeah. So I totally agree with you there, because I do that. There are people that I don't like you, so I won't watch your channel, right? We do that, like,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we're humans.
yeah, we're not gonna name names, but no, but I cannot accuse people of doing something and then get on my high horse and say I don't do the same thing. So I get that. And some people may click on my channel and go, I don't like this guy. Don't care what he's got to say. Like I get it. I get
Yeah.
it. But then is it just futile trying to understand the algorithm? Because I'm sure you've been approached by these SEO engineers that
Oh, yeah.
offer their services to boost your profile and do this. Have you ever been tempted to say, well, I'll pay you whatever it is for you to tell me what I'm doing wrong?
I have been. I get those a lot, especially in the last year or so. I don't know why these people are looking for work more and more, but I've been wondering, like, what am I doing wrong? And then I think, well, if I just spent the time to research SEO and all these optimization things, maybe I can do it myself. Then you think, do I have time to do that kind of? I mean, do I really want to spend my time learning about that, or do I just want to create things and hope for the best? It's one of those things where, am I enjoying what I'm doing? Do the views matter enough to take the time to learn about all this stuff? And if so, what's the benefit? I mean, let's be honest. Like, I'm monetized, and I've never earned a whole lot, even when I was doing live streams every week and videos and regular videos, and I've maybe made like $100. I mean, from being monetized, there's no money in it from the book sphere. There's just not. Even the big channels don't make a whole lot. They probably make more on Patreon and that kind of stuff than they do YouTube. So if that's not the goal, then what is the goal? That's kind of what I struggle with is, are you enjoying what you're doing? And if so, does the rest matter?
Yeah, no, I get that because last Saturday morning, I had a conversation with an Australian author, and honestly, I came out buzzing when that finished. I was like, like a bit of a high, like of having done something great, and I was excited
Mm-hmm.
about it. And yeah, it's like, oh, I really want to get this out there. So I think the enjoyment is definitely there, but yeah, I don't know how to beat the algorithm. But it's also a bit of not self-fulfilling prophecy, but the more subscribers you've got,
Mm-hmm.
the more access you're going to have to authors and bigger names to interview, right? Because I'm sure you've experienced it, I've experienced it, where you approach people and they look at your numbers and they just go, no. And I get it. Like, why would they talk to Ring a Ding channel me here? So, but and again, I don't know. Are we just like collecting names?
I feel a rant's coming on. So I've had people flat out tell me in the past, like in not verbatim, but pretty much, it's not worth my time. Like, thanks, but no thanks, and
But
that's fine.
yeah, exactly. But I'm
Yeah,
okay with
right.
that. I've approached like big name, multiple book series authors, and they've gone, no, thank you. I'm not like, okay, I understand the subtext, not a problem. But then is that, and I'm sure you had the ones that go, yeah, 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 but yeah, never happens.
Yes, and that too. It happens a lot. Yeah, and I most of the time I chalk that up to just people are busy and they forget. I don't. I try not to take it personal. I've had a lot of people who I've invited and they say, yeah, sure, and then I don't hear from them again. There's a really famous narrator who I was really excited to talk to, and we went back and forth for a while, and then they kind of like fell off the face of the earth. I was like, well, he's probably busy like recording audiobooks. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I try not to take it personal because people get busy and they lose track of things. So I try not to take it personal. But there's lots of grifters out there and lots of people who are opportunists who don't really care and who are just wanting to get what they can and get the attention they can from you, and they don't. And that's fine if you're straightforward with it. If you're like, hey, look, I think this can be beneficial for both of us, that's cool. But if you approach it in a way that's like, hey, I really want to be your buddy and let's talk about whatever, and then just be up forward and honest with what you're doing. It's like, hey, I think this is a mutually beneficial. Can we make something happen? It's like, yeah, sure, but don't be disingenuous about it. Like, just be honest and just say what you want. As far as big names go, I invited a very big fantasy author. I won't name drop them, but their agent got back to me and said, unless you're getting 100,000 downloads an episode, we're not interested. So I was like, okay. But on the same page, I invited Alan Moore, who was like legendary.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
very polite. He thanked me for the invitation, and he's like, I'm very busy, but thank you for the invitation. I can't right now. And I was like, that made my day. That's cool.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
right on.
I'll have more road to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a lifelong fan. I was already before, but for now, I'm for sure a
Yeah.
lifelong fan.
Yeah, I mean, because with indie authors, I'm at the point, I'm sure you as well, where people approach you and ask you to read the books and review them. And I always tell them, like, I'm busy, like my TBR is big as it is, and now I get, for some reason, I get more and more indie authors.
Mhm.
But I always tell them, if I don't like your book, like the worst I'm gonna do is not review it because I don't wanna, if someone is aspiring to, you know, whatever, I don't wanna be someone, putting a spanner in the works.
Right.
Um, but like last week, someone just said like, "Oh, here's a copy of my book." That was it. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not even gonna bother replying. I'm not even gonna bother reading it. Like, it may be the greatest book I've never read, but the way it's like you've sent this email to another 400 YouTubers or
Mhm.
reviewers, and like you said, like there's gotta be a mutual. And there's been people where I've not liked the book, but I've still invited them
Mhm.
to like, hey, here's my platform as it is, promote yourself. And only one person has come back and said yes, and we had the conversation.
I go back and I get that a lot too. I get people just sending me books and like, here's my book. Can you read it? It's like, no, I can't. I'm so busy that I struggle keeping up with what I plan to read anyway. And I don't want to get anything for free from anyone because then I'll feel guilty that I didn't get to it. And I don't want someone to be counting on me to get back to them. And I know it's a trap that I think we've all fallen into at some point. Once you start getting a little bit of traction, you get lots of books like, wow, this, free books. This is great. And then you're like,
Mm,
I have way too many. I can't keep up. And then, like you said, you get a lot of indie authors who, you know, who reach out to try and they want you to help get the word out, which is a good marketing strategy for them to help, people. But then I think, okay, if I don't like it, and like you said, if I don't like it and don't review it, is that doing a disservice for people that listen or watch who want to know what I really think? And is it a disservice to the author to critique their work? So I go back and forth with, am I being mean spirited? Should I review it and leave it a negative review, but a constructive negative review, not a nasty one, of course. But I go back and forth with that a lot. It's like, should I review this and say what I really think and hurt their sales, and tell my viewers like pretty much this isn't worth reading, or do I just stay silent and let it kind of whatever happens happens? So it's a weird thing. Like if you consider yourself a reviewer, whatever that means for different people, is that something we should be doing? Because I do the same thing. If I don't like a book, I won't really say a whole lot about it. But then I wonder, is that good or bad? I don't know.
I think we've talked about it in the past. It's
Mhm.
different for me to not like the Wheel of Time
Yeah.
than
Oh yeah.
to not like XXX book by YYY author that is trying to break into it. So what I mean, you've sort of briefly mentioned it. So why did you pivot away from YouTube?
But it's been a little over a year. I took a break from YouTube, and I kind of needed a break from content and everything else. And I just decided, I just thought, I just don't want to do it anymore. I just don't. I just didn't feel like I wanted to spend that time doing that anymore, because it became a thing where I was reading hours and hours a day. I know a lot of people, people say, "Oh, you read so much and so fast." Like, no, I spend a lot of time reading. I spend 2 or 3 hours an afternoon reading. Just sitting there and reading. And when I took my break, I got back into cycling and I got back into doing other things that I enjoy. And I didn't. You reflect and look back and say, okay, I spent 40 hours plus a week, give or take, creating videos for YouTube. And if I spend 10 hours a week creating podcasts and reading less, is that better for me? Is that better? Is that a better use of my time to do other hobbies and be more active and do other things? So I just decided, what am I getting out of this? If creating content and having friends and having people that we discuss with and read with and have these kind of talks with, if that's the goal, then I can do that and I can enjoy those things without spending the time creating videos and for the perfect lighting every time and the perfect
Yeah, yeah.
whatever and all the edits and editing a video. Like I did a weekly update every week. and that would take me 2 or 3 hours to record and edit and thumbnails and all that stuff. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's like, and then you wonder too, am I being vain? Is it a thing where I'm craving the attention? And you start to wonder that about yourself. Like, is it just me wanting attention for myself? And is that, you kind of wonder that, like,
I think there's an element of that. I think we fall into that. I mean, you and I think are kind of an age. We grew up analog and only became digital in our adult age. So to be honest, I don't think we are too fast about likes and subscribers and all that sort of stuff. But yes, I think there is an element of, hey, I've made this, and I want the world to like it.
Yeah.
But I think we are more emotionally mature to deal with people not liking it than say my students, right?
Yeah. Well, you like to think so. It's tough. I mean, like you said, like we talked about, like sometimes people just won't like you, but when someone comes out and says, I just don't like your stupid face, or you're an idiot, or whatever, it's like, okay, whatever. And then you think about, like, am I really an idiot?
No, I've never wondered. Like, I know I am. It's okay.
I never claimed to be smart, so
Yeah, that's one of your lines, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it is okay, but you've talked about like talking to the void.
Mm-hmm.
But surely, I say surely, if you put a video out there on YouTube, you still get some level of engagement, whether it's the likes, the dislikes, or the comments. But with the podcast, you're not getting any engagement there. You're literally just dropping that out there into the world.
Yeah.
So I get the point. I get the point that it takes less time because it's a much more organic thing. Like it will take you as long to record a 2-hour podcast than to make a 10-minute video.
Yeah.
So I get that. But surely the feeling of shouting to the void is amplified with the podcast.
Yes, it is. It's a whole different world because you go from YouTube and the algorithm and titles and thumbnails, and then you go to a podcast. There's no algorithm. There's really no thumbnails. There's your description and there's your audio. And there's not a ton of editing. I have I have the editing process down pretty good. I can edit in 10 minutes. So I have it down pretty good. But yeah, so you put it out there, and on YouTube, you get the thumbs up, the thumbs down, you get comments, you get that engagement, and you get that feedback, whether it's good or bad. On podcasts, you put it out there and it's just like, okay, it's out there. Like you get download numbers. Yeah, it's like you get download numbers, and also with YouTube, and I'm assuming you can probably relate to this, is a lot of it is like this culture of you have to be on time, you have to have a schedule, your videos have to be over X many minutes, you have to have a thumbnail with red in it, with an arrow, or with a surprise look in your face or whatever. Like there's all these things you have to do. And with the podcast, you just put it out there and it's like, whatever happens. So then it took me a while to get used to not having that engagement. And it's good in a way because you don't have those, the people in the comments being like, well, you're an idiot. I wasted my time. But on the other side, you don't get anything, like really at all. So it's weird. It's a weird feeling. So I've gotten used to just like, and now my podcasts upload on YouTube automatically now that YouTube has YouTube podcasts, and that's been good. So I get some engagement there, but yeah, I think I've gotten used to just the putting it out there and hoping for the best. And if people enjoy it, then that's cool. And if not, that's cool too. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and it is what it is.
Yeah. So let's get back to the whole community thing, because I was thinking about it, like what are we to each other? Like, there's a chance I've talked to you, certainly Susanna, some people in the community more than I took to people that live like half a mile away from me over the week, over the month, right?
Yeah.
So, but what are we? Internet friends, like my YouTube friends? Like, it's a weird relationship that I don't sit down to talk to people like this for like an hour and a half in so-called real life.
No, it is strange. I think part of it is, well, we have similar interests, we have things we can talk about, and I think like we mentioned, it's some of it is we can talk about like content creation. I can talk to most people about this kind of stuff, about YouTube and podcasting,
You can tell them.
nobody, you can tell them they don't care. Like you can, they're going to check out in like 15 seconds. But so, yeah, I think part of it is that we have similar experiences too with, all these things, and we can relate to each other. And yeah, I think of all of you as friends. I mean, I think of, especially, the little group we have now, and we keep adding, now and then. But yeah, it is a weird thing to think of people who are around the world as friends or whatever. But I think it's like I mentioned before, like I have a really stressful job. So when I show up to a podcast, something like this, or we're going to talk about our favorite comic books or our favorite books, or just to show up and shoot the shit for whatever. When you show up and people are like, well, I'm glad you made it. It's like, it's cool. Like you don't get that too often. Like,
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, wow, like, so yeah, it's a great, it's like this, it's great having people like that you can talk to and that don't completely hate you for whatever reason.
You get, I feel sometimes through watching people on YouTube, strangely, I think I build some kind of connection. And then when people all of a sudden disappear from YouTube, like I'm like, oh, are they okay? Like I kind of worry, like for their, physical, mental well-being. But people just disappear. Does that bother you when that happens?
No, no, it's never really bothered me. But after last year, I was like, I get it. Like I understand. I think sometimes we get so invested in it, and we've spent so much time, and sometimes people just burn out, and they just think they just kind of hit their wall, and they just need a break. They need to just disappear for a while and be alone, or kind of shut that off, and shut that part of their life off for a while, and just focus on whatever it is they're dealing with, or just because they need to get away and do something else. But I do always hope, like I'm sure we can name names of people who we've talked to before and who kind of fell off and don't show up a whole lot anymore. But I always hope that they'll show back up and be like, I'm back, or just in some form or another. And it doesn't necessarily have to be YouTube or even podcasts and stuff, but just to come by and say hi and just let us know you're alive. So hopefully those people will pop back in once in a while.
Right. I've got some questions here for you from the community. I think they've been quite kind. And it'd be funny if you can see who the person asking the question is. So, Steve, what was your first job, and what did you learn from that experience?
Oh, nice. Very good.
Do you recognize the question?
Paramita, is that Paramita's question?
No, it's Mike.
Oh, Mike. Okay, good. A good question, Mike. Yeah. So my first job was I had a friend in high school who worked at a 3-4 story office building after school, and they would go and like do janitorial stuff. And his mom ran the crew who would come in and like clean up and stuff. So they offered me a job, and I would go and vacuum offices after school. I would go and do like 3 or 4 hours I would go vacuum carpets and sweep and mop. And I had old school Walkman with a tape player and headphones on, and I would get down with the vacuum and sweep certain rooms. And there was these huge mainframe rooms that I'm sure like one computer handles now, but I go in there, sweep and mop, and there was no one around. Everyone was gone most of the time. So I had it was like all these all these levels of this office building just for me, and like 4 other like old ladies who did the rest of it, who did like windows and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a great experience. I think for me, what I learned is just like, do I want to do this forever? So it was fun and everything, but and it's important to do that stuff needs to get done. I think people who do that kind of thing don't really get the thanks that they deserve, who we just trying to people just doing that kind of thing. So yeah, it kind of put me in that position of realizing like how much happens behind the scenes of how does this stuff get cleaned every day. It's like, oh, people come in and actually do it. Like So it kind of I don't say put me in my place, but it was a way to know that there's different people do different things for work, and a lot of it is thankless.
From Mike, if the zombie apocalypse were upon us, what would be your weapon of choice?
Oh man, oh Mike. I think probably, so you want something quiet, you want something that doesn't need ammunition, So I would say probably like a spear and a shield,
Ooh,
something long with range. I think a sword is a cool. It's cool to say like a katana, but that's too. You need to get too close for that. Like I don't want to get that close. So I
right.
think like a spear, like a long, like Spartan, like 300 style spear.
They're difficult to handle. I think it's probably a sword is more intuitive than that, maybe. But
That's true. Yeah, that's true. It'd be hard to
right,
carry too. You know, it'd be hard, if you need to run fast. It'd be a pain in the ass to carry that long
yeah,
thing. But
absolutely. Okay, another question from someone else.
oh,
You can only read one and never experience the other. Which one do you pick? Berserk or Second Apocalypse?
oh, I would read Second Apocalypse and never read Berserk again.
And why?
Yeesh. Okay, I might upset some people. I think the Second Apocalypse, while it's not for everyone, Paramita. Um,
That's who
yeah,
asked the question. Well
yeah.
done.
Yeah, well, it's not for everyone. It's much more complex and thought provoking than Berserk is. I think Berserk, while I enjoyed it, I think there's a lot of filler. There's a lot of it. The pacing is not good. Overall, I enjoyed the story, but and it's not even done yet. Well, I guess Second Apocalypse isn't done yet either. But yeah, I just think. Well, I really liked Berserk. I wouldn't say loved Berserk. I liked Berserk, but there's a lot of problems with it. So I'd go with Second Apocalypse.
Yeah, nice. Got one more question, and I need to take some air here. I need to breathe in. Here we go. Which heroes and villains had the most influence or impact on you as a child, and has that changed for you as an adult with a now allegedly more mature perspective? I added the allegedly, by the way.
Okay, all right. I was trying. Who was who? So when I
that
was
was
yeah.
that was
Who?
Holly.
Holly. Okay, that was yeah. Okay. Oh, she might make a dig at me. It's okay. Okay. So the heroes that made the most influence. So I would say, growing up, I was really big into Wolverine. He's
mm,
kind of a loner and an asshole. So I guess I'm pretty much the same.
identified.
Yeah. And that probably, honestly, now that I think about it, now that I think about that question, I think having a character that I would read when I was little, like Wolverine, who would chop people in half, and he'd kill a lot of people. He was kind of the enforcer for the X-Men for his wholesome, or I don't say wholesome, but even like the Chris Claremont stuff. He
Mm,
was always the kind of the one who would do the dirty work, and that's probably formed a lot of my tastes now as an adult on enjoying more of the darker stuff and the more violent stuff. So yeah, I think that's probably more impactful than I realized before that question. Thank you, Holly.
has it changed now that you're an adult?
No, I think I kind of always gravitate towards the loner in the group. Like whenever I'm looking for a hero or someone to a character to enjoy, I tend to gravitate more towards the loner characters and the ones who are kind of the outcasts and the oddballs. And I think everyone calls themselves a black sheep. So everyone's like, "Oh, I'm the black sheep." Like, are you really though? But
Uh,
I tend to gravitate more towards those. I hate to say morally gray, the more nuanced characters.
how much has the podcast and the community and everything become a part of you or define you to a degree?
Oh wow. Well, I don't have. I mean, I have friends like I have friends that I hang out with and friends that I spend time with in quote unquote real life. So no, I have I'm very lucky to have a couple of really good friends, but really a lot of my friend time is with all of you and chatting about nonsense and books and literature and comics and movies and just whatever it is we talk about. So yeah, it's become a big part of my life, and it's become an outlet that without it, I don't know that I'd probably gone a little crazy by now and had to find something else to have that outlet with. I think for as much as we talk about creating content and engagement and all that stuff, I think a lot of it is just creating something, like the act of creating and the act of making something and sharing your passions and sharing the things that you enjoy with other people. So having people to talk to and to kind of bounce off of that's a really big, it's a really big outlet for me to create things and to, even though, not many people care, it's still an outlet that you can express yourself in certain ways. But without the community, with all of you, I probably wouldn't be doing, I'd focus on something else. But
This is something I've mentioned in a couple of past episodes with you about, humans, we are social animals.
mhm,
And before the advent of television, you've heard me tell the story before, in Spain, we had the coffee culture where people would
mhm,
sit down and chat for hours. And I think the art of conversation had kind of died away. And I think podcasts are the new form of the traditional, you know, conversation culture and
yeah.
art. The art to converse, I think kids these days don't quite have it yet. And I think this is, in a way, replacing the old sit down around a coffee table, having a drink, talking to your mates.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it is replacing that. And I think people crave that kind of, I think it's built into us. It's hardwired into us to have these kind of talks, like these long form discussions, and just to sit and talk, because that's all we had for a while without technology. And the kids now, and I hate to sound like a man yelling at the clouds, but a lot of it is lost because they're so wrapped up in technology and don't have that, the back and forth, and they, with the algorithms and everything else, they often get stuck in this echo chamber where they hear the same opinions over and over again. So it's hard to present a differing or an opposite opinion when that's where you get your most, that's where you kind of communicate the most in, is these platforms, which are built to create, I think, conflict between everyone else. They're not made to create harmony. They're made to, to engage you and to get you
Mm.
upset and to keep you scrolling, because that's what they're built for. They're engineered for those reasons. So yeah, I think it has replaced it. I think people, like I said, I think someone like Joe Rogan, who talks to celebrities or whatever for an hour, and he's, making all his money and has his million downloads every episode. I think that's, people like sitting down and listening to, or sitting down and talking. And I think that's something we crave, whether or not we realize it consciously. I think it's something that we all kind of yearn for, is having that connection. I think that's why a lot of people now are going back to like journaling and something tactile and physical to write things down, or to get away from phones and to spend more time outside or whatever. I think it's gonna. I'm hoping that things will change and that will become more of the mainstream. I think maybe the next generation will veer more towards that way, because that's the rebel thing to do instead of the smartphones and plugged in all day long. So here's hoping.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Um, you've been doing this for longer than I have, but I would like to think, but I'm not sure I got there, that you've become a better listener
Oh yeah.
or a better conversationalist. Because sometimes I find myself that we are part of a conversation and I've got a point that I want to make in my head, and I'm just waiting for the next person to finish talking so I can make my point. And I mean, I don't know. You want to bring something to the conversation,
Hmm.
but deep down, I know that's not the best thing to do. But I want to make my point and I want to say my thing. And I don't know. Sometimes I think I need to let it go a bit
Mhm.
more.
Yeah, it's definitely. I don't want to say it's not an art form, but it's definitely something that takes a lot of discipline and a lot of kind of filling the room, I guess you can say, because you want to keep you. Sometimes it's not the right time to make a certain point or to express your opinion on something, and whether a certain topic has run its course or you want to bring it back to life and kind of. So yeah, there's lots of different things, but you definitely become a better listener, and you're a few questions ahead in your mind. And oftentimes those, you never even get a chance to ask those questions because we move on to something else. So yeah, it's definitely improved my listening skills, and I don't know. I would like to think it's improved my communication skills outside
Yeah.
of this. But yeah, I think it's something that it's something that I think is helpful to me, especially at work, and dealing with other people. So yeah, it's.
How much did you prepare your interviews?
I used to I used to sit down and write 20 to 30 questions on a note on a page,
Hmm.
And I did that for a good year plus. I would write questions down, and then I started to realize a lot of these questions are the same questions every time. So half of the questions would be, 10 to 15 questions. They would all be pretty much the same for every guest. And then I would have 10 or 15 of something specific to that author. So I would look at their bio. I would look at what they've done. I would read up on their books. I'd have questions about something specific to them. And then I eventually just stopped writing things down and just kind of look at their bio, and I just kind of wait and see like where the conversation takes us. And sometimes we have a conversation that isn't even about what their book is about. And sometimes that's all we talk about. It just depends on where it goes. And I try to let things kind of evolve on their own and not try to steer things a certain way, because when you get a topic going, you get like a conversation going, you don't want to stop it if you're really getting somewhere with it and then veer them off another direction. So you try to kind of let things go as they naturally would when you can. So now I just have all these questions in my head. I'll have their bio pulled up, and I'll have a couple of, oh shit, I need to ask something questions just in case, if some things get quiet and awkward. So I have a couple of bailout questions in my head just to kind of get things going again, or fill the space. Because not everyone is a talker, and that's, you want people to talk. That's, you invite people on, and you don't want like a yes or no. You want them to expound on stuff and to tell you,
I think generally people do, but I feel particularly with like the bigger names, that I've got the idea in my head that they don't want to hear what I've got to say. like they are insert big name author here. Like, why does he give a shit about whatever? He's happy to talk about his book and himself, and that's the easiest thing to get people talking about themselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
No one knows your story better than you. And I'm happy to listen to when I interviewed Tim Powers, listening to a master talking about his craft. That was great. But if I start telling them like my experiences or my opinions or whatever, I'm thinking like, why am I telling them? Like they big, me small. Like, did you get that?
Yeah, I've actually been trying to do a little bit more of that, because I think I got to a point where I was just asking questions all the time and not kind of trying to relate to them or letting them know that I understand what they're saying, or I understand in some way what they're saying. So yeah, if it's someone that's a master at their craft, I just kind of shut up and let them talk. I try not to get in their way. Basically, I don't want to make myself look like an idiot, which I do that all on my own. But the sometimes if it's a conversation that's more of a back and forth, then I'll try to insert a little bit. I try not to go too far though, because they aren't there. The listeners aren't there to listen to me. They're there to listen to the guest. So I want the guest to talk about, and some people do that. There's some really big YouTubers who you go on and they'll talk about themselves, and it's like, why am I here? But so yeah, it's something that that takes practice for sure to know when to do that.
Yeah. And I always get nervous when I'm waiting for the guest to show up on the platform, like, because you've done it all, time zones, all checked, time, date, sorted, everything, and you're getting 10 minutes before. There's no one there. 5 minutes before, there's no one there. And do you still get nervous that they may not turn up at the last minute?
People not showing up, I've had a lot of those lately. I've had a lot of people just not showing up, and like I said, people get busy or whatever. But yeah, there's a few that I think there's two. I was really nervous. I've always been really nervous to talk to Mike Thorne. He's a horror author. I was always really nervous to talk to him. For some reason, I was always really nervous. And there may be one other one that I can't remember right now, but most of the time when I get down to the last few minutes, I just kind of, I don't know, I'm not nervous anymore, but I'm nervous the days before that. So the 5 minutes before we start, I'm fine. But ever since we planned it weeks ago, then I'm nervous and I lose sleep. But then I show up, I'm like, okay, we're just going to talk. So it's a strange one.
And do you think, for me, sometimes, because you're not a podcast, I don't know, the expectation is minimum 1 hour. Otherwise, it's not a good episode.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then you see the clock ticking in the corner and you go like, oh, it's only 6 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But then things do carry on, right? But did you get that? Like, oh, it's 6 minutes and I don't know what to say anymore. Where is this going?
All the time. I get that all the time. And, we start talking with someone you haven't talked to before and you look down, it's like 5 minutes. It's like, oh, I'm done. Like, I got nothing else. Like, where do we go from here? But then I noticed like people will start to loosen up. And then within like 15, 20 minutes into a talk, they'll start to loosen up and then things will start to kind of roll. And then you look back and it's like, oh, we've been talking for an hour. So it's that weird period of the first 10 minutes or so where you're kind of getting a feel for each other. And then once you get them going, they'll go and go and go. And then an hour has gone by.
Yeah. And what about when you stop recording? I had an author that just literally disappeared.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, like what the fuck? Like normally people stay around and you have you have that as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Some people do that. Some people just disappear and it's like, I just chalk that up to, they just don't know, like, because I think most of us, we stop recording and then we talk and, oh, that was great. Or what are you reading? Whatever. We just kind of have small talk. But yeah, some people I just don't, I just chalk it up to them just like not knowing and just like, okay, we're done. Bye. And they'd leave. Or maybe they just don't want to chit chat anymore. They're like, I've had enough. And they leave.
Is there some kind of unspoken podcast etiquette that you don't leave as soon as the off button goes? You're going to stick around for another 5 minutes at least.
Yeah, I think that's kind of one of those things where, you kind of stick around for a few minutes and be like, hey, thanks. That was great. Or when are you going to release the episode or what? Just something, just like you that's kind of an unspoken thing, but some people are like, yeah, I'm out of here. We're done. So,
and sometimes, annoyingly in a way, some great things happen off the recording, and it's like, I wish I hadn't pressed pause just yet, or or they may give you some kind of inside information that you cannot share with the general public just yet, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the AP Canavan, the times I've talked to him, we always talk for like 2 hours and then we stop recording and we talk for like another hour and a half. And I think why did I keep recording? I should have just like kept recording. But yeah, you get sometimes the after recording stuff is better than the recording stuff. And you're like, man, I wish I would have kept it going.
Yeah. And do you think there's a sweet spot for a number of guests in a conversation? I think that beyond a certain number, it gets too chaotic. But sometimes I need Susanna there to help me raise the level of a conversation. Sometimes I don't feel I'm qualified to do this by myself.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the type of conversation. If it's just like a random, let's hang out and whatever happens. Like, I think about 6 people is the max. And that's kind of like 6 is, right about where everyone can have their piece. But if it's like a guest where you're doing an interview, it's like a group thing, but there's a focus. One person is a focus. I think it's more like 4 people, 3 or 4. And then beyond that, you kind of step on each other, asking the guests certain things. So I think 4 people if you have a guest who you're trying to feature. But if it's like a random hangout, you can go 6, depending on the topic. But yeah, that's about right, I would say.
No, your numbers are a little bit higher than mine. I think very traditional sort of Dungeons and Dragon 5-member party would be my max. But yeah, it's a strange thing. I'm just asking because we're meant to go and do the graphic novels episode in when now?
Yeah, in a few minutes. Yeah, we have a few more minutes.
I don't know. You see, it's one of those things. Okay, now you lose your train of thought. You got that sort of awkward moment in the conversation. How do you get out of it? Because sometimes you feel, so this is the time. Like I've got nothing left to ask. There's a lull. Time to end the conversation. And then you kick yourself because, like I said, once you press the off button, and then you carry on for another 45 minutes. It's
yeah. As far as like that lull and getting like, how do I get out of this? There's a few very basic questions that I kind of default to. I don't know if I should repeat them because
help me out.
But there's a few. There's ones that I think most people can relate to. Like, was there like a childhood book that influenced you, or was there something that kind of gets them thinking about themselves and their history and something that gets them to loosen up a little bit, or something specific, or like what's been a challenge that you've had to overcome that you've learned from, or tell me about a time you thought you were going to fail but you found a way to persevere, or something like that, just to kind of get them going, to get them to talk.
It's like very HR questions, your kind of job interview sort of things, isn't it?
Yeah, tell me about yourself and what you can offer to our company or whatever. So,
yeah. I hated that. I hated those. Really did. And I don't think I can say I've never had a conversation or a guest that I kind of regretted or gone like, oh my god, like I need to stay here for like another 45 minutes and I wish I wasn't. Without obviously naming names, have you had guests where you've been thinking, what the fuck is this? Like...
Yes, I have. Yes, I've had many of those, and I've probably talked to, I've probably done like 200 of these. I mean, almost close to 200, I would say. Maybe not. Well, yeah, about 200. But yeah, definitely I've had people who are like, why am I here? I'm just completely wasting my time. Like, this is just not fun. I could be doing anything else and I'm stuck. Yeah, I've had a lot of those. Yeah.
Is that when you need extra guests to keep things going?
Yes, that's when the extra guests really help, because they can think of something and ask something that I didn't think of, and it's like, oh, thankfully they're here to steer the conversation somewhere, because I'm like, I'd check out. But I mean, I guess when you consider I've taught to probably 200 people, I think I've had 10 of those, maybe 5 to 10. So not too bad.
Yeah. And obviously, excuse me. How did the whole thing with Johnny Words come about? Because she, for a time, was sort of reasonably active in the page chewing, and she's been in quite a few conversations. And I always think that these people are quite busy with their long epic sagas and everything. And I love talking to. I don't usually talk to Johnny. She like tells me what to do and stuff like that. She's got that sort of in the most polite, respectful, complimentary manner. She's a kind of the granny weatherwax of authors. Like, she'll tell you what things are like and stop being silly, like.
Yeah, she's very straightforward, which I like. I love about her. Jenny's brilliant. I mean, I have so much respect for her, but yeah, she's very direct, which I appreciate, because she'll tell you how it is, and it's like, at least you're not sugarcoating it. Yeah, I met her through PL Stewart. PL's a friend of hers, and he kind of told me one time, I have Jenny Wurst to come on the podcast, and it's like, cool. And it kind of blossomed from there. But yeah, every time I talk to Jenny, I feel motivated to do something creative, because she just has that really, the way she has like this, motivational speaker kind of thing going on, where you just feel like you can do anything when you talk to her.
Yeah, I think, and again, I don't want to be disrespectful, but there's obviously that age gap there.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, she's that sort of, that grandma that will tell you to just get on with it, stop moaning, stop whinging, just go on and do it, and give you that oomph that sometimes when we are too hesitant to try. And no, he's great. And then obviously, how many times have you talked to Steven Erickson?
Two times. I think we had one about Toll of the Hounds, and then we had another one, a Friday conversation with him and a group, I believe twice. I think twice, yeah. Hope to do it again.
But I guess some authors are very, they're sort of keener to be part of the whole podcast circuit or whatever, isn't it? They maybe they enjoy it.
Yeah, I think some people do enjoy it, and some people are more they just don't want to bother with it, which is fine. I mean, not everyone wants to get on a microphone and be put on the spot and be asked a bunch of questions, and I respect that. I mean, I don't blame them. But of course, we appreciate when people are willing to be like, yeah, I'll come on and talk to you for an hour and a half or whatever. Like, it's a really great feeling when someone that you enjoy what they create is willing to talk to you.
Because what do you think is the return for them? Because I understand them wanting to talk to, you mentioned Mike's book reviews, or people with like thousands of subscribers. But when they're willing to talk to, Billy Numbnuts me, I'm like, what's the return for you? Like, what have I done to deserve this?
I think part of it is just being willing to I think part of it is, and I don't know this for sure. I've never asked them. I haven't asked somebody, why are you talking to an idiot like me? But I would imagine they're trying to support the people who do read their books and who promote them, because even in our own small way, we do promote certain things that we enjoy, and if that means 2 people go and check it out, I mean that's something. And or kind of talk about their work, and take the time to really think about it and to ask them meaningful questions, and to hear our thoughts and what they created. I think that's, maybe they don't get that a whole lot either. Maybe they don't get a whole lot of feedback from just readers like that too often. So I think part of it is too, is they just want to support people who support them. And like, I'll take an hour out of my afternoon and talk to this silly looking person for an hour, just to tell them I appreciate them checking out my books. And not everyone's like that. So it's great when someone like Steven Erickson is willing to talk to you, because a lot of people aren't. Like Stephen King will never talk to us, or like a Brandon Sanderson will never talk to us. So it's cool to have that.
Yeah, I think who said it first? I think it was. I can't remember who said it. If you remember the quote, he said that for us readers, writers are like the rock stars, isn't
Yeah.
it? And it's like meeting kind of your heroes. Like for me, I was reading Tim Powers at the turn of the century when I went to university, and then to think that 24 years later, I would be talking to him for like an hour and a half, and everything is like never imagined would be possible.
Yeah, it's wild. And they are like rock stars. I mean, so to be able to say I talked to Steven Erickson, how fucking cool is that? Like that's wild. I mean, when you even say it out loud, it's like, it's crazy. Or even someone like Jenny Wirtz. Like I've talked to Jenny Wirtz. Like sometime, I've talked to her a few times. You talk to like AP Canavan, or these people who are just brilliant people. Like blow your mind when you talk to them, and to be able to say that you've done that, when you look back on it and say, look at all these really amazing people I've talked to and all the things I've learned from them, it's a pretty special feeling. That's really what keeps us going too, right?
Yeah, but I think you only get to boast about inverted commas, in the community, because again, for people outside, I think, because when I think it was Tim Powers when he said, yeah, when he goes to conventions and he's at the hotel, yeah, he's Tim Powers, the World Fantasy winner, everyone. And he said the second he steps out of the convention hotel down the street, no one recognizes him anymore. He's just a normal dude walking down the street. So I guess maybe we are a very small community.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. There's a person I work with who was telling me that they picked up these science fiction books. And like, yeah, I picked up these books and I'm reading with my wife, and I thought, oh, well, what book is it? And it was the Children of Time series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And I said, oh, I've talked to him. And they like blew his mind. He's like, you've talked to Adrian Tchaikovsky? I was like, yeah. So it doesn't happen very often, but it's pretty neat when it does. Like, you be able to say you talked to someone like, someone who has their book in a bookstore, and people read. So yeah, they are rock stars to us, but for most people, they don't know who they are.
Yeah. Well, I think definitely this is the time, Steve, to call it a day for today. I think maybe there's a part 2 to be had.
Sure.
At some point in the future, and maybe we'll put you on the spot with a few more people from the forum. But I think I speak on behalf of everyone there, and I'm not going to name everyone because I'll leave them out.
Yeah.
Do not disappear. Keep the pagechewing forums going, because I think it's testament to you've captured lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, I have gone on record. I have gone on record and said that if I do decide to disappear, that I'll hand the keys over to someone who will take care of it. So I don't anticipate that happening, but if it ever does, then it'll live on without me.
Well, Steve, once again, thank you very much for being here today. And well, I guess we'll carry on talking for your podcast in 5 minutes' time.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. And thank you, everyone who's listening now at home. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye.